What's going on YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here bringing another video. Today I'm bringing you a video on Kamen Rider Build episode 45. This episode is called The Scientist of Hope, I believe. Yeah, The Scientist of Hope. This episode overall was really good. I thought that this episode was actually going to be the final one of the main story. It looks more like 46 might be it. Again, I don't know exactly what it is. I was hearing rumors last week, so probably more likely 46. That's what I'm kind of expecting now. Will be like the last one of the main story. Then there'll be like 3 additional episodes or so, but we'll see. Maybe they'll push it back to 47. I don't know for a fact. This episode overall though was really good. It led to some really intense scenes overall, and things are just getting very interesting. So anyway, this episode starts off with us seeing that Sento's father ends up, in the previous episode, collecting the lost bottles, putting them inside of the black panel. And the thing is that he ends up grabbing the evil trigger and explains that Evolto is still alive. He's not dead. He inserted his DNA last second into the evil trigger so that when he died, he didn't actually die. So in other words, he still remains. But then what happens is that Sento's father goes into the Pandora Tower while Sento and the others follow. And what happens is that as they insert the bottles in and everything, it's explained to them that if the lost bottles were inserted into the panel, all of them, it would create a warp hole and would allow him to travel between worlds and just destroy them in an instant. So you could go jump everywhere and just destroy each world without having to actually travel to them over a long distance. That's kind of what he was looking to do with this black panel, was create this warp hole ability that he has. So what happens is that following this, he said, like, his father basically says that he's not going to do that, and that it was his plan to basically stop him in his tracks and prevent him from being able to create such a situation. And so in other words, he basically says sorry for his actions, even though in reality he was part of the whole reasoning behind why so many people died due to the Skywall incident. So, it's sort of like one of those situations where it's like, do you trust a guy like that or do you not? Someone that destroyed so many in order to stop one major target that would have destroyed everyone. It's a hard situation, you lost a lot of lives in order to save billions. Millions and billions, and destroy the entire universe basically. So what is interesting then is that Utsumi appears, and Utsumi is actually being controlled by Evolto. So Evolto suddenly talks through Utsumi, basically saying that he's been able to control the travel of his DNA, and he can separate his DNA and let parts of it go off, and he can manipulate people through it. So that's kind of an important detail for what happens later in this episode. But so what does end up happening is that as Utsumi, he ends up using the powers of Evolto to suddenly kill Sento's father. And his father has this reflection of what he said to his son back during the Skywall incident, where he said, "Have you grown taller?" And what happens is he says this to Sento, and he also ends up whispering in his ear some important information and giving him some other important thing, which is significant, but it'll be even more significant next episode. So what does end up happening is that following this, he dies. Sento and the others end up transforming to fight Evolto as a mad rogue. But then what happens is that he separates from Utsumi and becomes it takes on the Cobra form. And then what happens is that he ends up taking on, I believe in the same part, maybe the black hole form. And then they end up having to retreat. And Kazumi is like knocked out at this point, which is kind of significant because he ends up inside of like where they sleep or whatever. And the others are doing their own thing. Sento in particular is doing some research online about something very important, which is the fact that we end up learning that what Sento's father whispered to him is the idea of how there was also there's not just a black panel, there's also a white panel. And the thing is that the hazard trigger is also key to a lot of these things, and it's super important. And the thing is that Katsuragi believes that the hazard trigger was only meant for destruction and for a bad purpose. Yet Sento believed there has to have been another function for it. That it couldn't have just been for evil, and that's true. In the end, we end up learning that at the end of this episode that there was another reason. So what does end up happening from here is that Sento's trying to figure out a way to get into the system, figure out what he needs to about special cards that are given to him that he needs to analyze and figure out more about. And the cards that feature build and cross Z on them, so that's kind of important. So then what happens is that suddenly there's another attack in the city, and what happens from there is that Sento, Ryoga, and Gentaku head down because Kazumi is still sleeping. And what happens is that they end up fighting Evolto. And what happens is that at one point, in the middle of their battle, Sento can't transform into genius form. So he's kind of in a bad situation, and Evolto says, "You lose." And what happens is that suddenly Kazumi wakes up, and he dashes over, bringing with him the remaining lost bottle that Mizora had. I believe it was Mizora who had it. He actually knocks out Mizora and Sawa, so he gets it from them. And what happens is that he ends up coming to where Evolto is, giving him the lost bottle, and the thing is that he only need one more to unlock the black panel. He ends up using the black panel, inserting it into his chest, and taking on his true form, meaning his strongest form that he has, and his true form, which is this alien Martian form that he takes on. So then from there, what happens is that he proves to be an extremely difficult challenge for Sento and the others, like so difficult to the point that he's like on a whole other level than he was ever before. And then what happens is that at one point Sento can't go to genius form, as we said before. He's only in a rabbit form, and what happens is that suddenly Sento and Evolto are warped to another planet where Evolto ends up using his black hole break to destroy all inhabitants and just completely destroy a planet. So yeah, he gets to experience what his warp hole ability allows him to do and what he plans to do, which is basically warp to different planets and destroy everything on them, leaving nothing but him to exist. Yes, pretty terrible, pretty awful, and he wants to create a new world by starting from scratch, which is kind of interesting. Eventually they return back to Earth, and it sounds like he wants to destroy Earth next. And then what happens is that Sento realizes the reason why he wasn't able to use the genius form is because he was showing hatred, when in reality he can't show that. If he shows hatred, the genius form will not activate, because it's meant to work when he's showing something more positive, I guess you could say. It's not very clear as to whether or not it's like happiness or joy. It's just something more positive. And when he thinks about his father, that's the thing that kind of triggers it, I believe. So what happens is that he ends up using the genius form finally, and Sento and the others, so that means all four of them, because Kazumi ends up not being controlled anymore by Evolto. And what happens is that he ends up joining with the others. He uses his grease form, and the others use their forms as well. And what happens is that there's a 4-way rider kick that occurs with tons of flames and sparks and everything. And what happens is that suddenly, as this rider kick occurs, you end up seeing just this intense whip around of the 4 riders screaming and, getting ready to destroy Evolto. What also happens is that the black panel ends up releasing from Evolto's body, but Evolto does manage to actually catch the black panel, so he doesn't lose it. He catches it, though there are at least 2 bottles that fall. He manages to get, I think, one of them, and then 2. I don't know. I think it was like three bottles that fall. 1 bottle that he catches, and then 2 bottles that Sento and the others catch. So in other words, he can't use the warp hole right now. So then at this point, what happens is that Sento and the others end up using Sento and the others. Sorry, I was like yawning. Yeah. Sento and the others realize that they need to escape, but one of the bottles that they managed to get is the one that Kazumi gets, and it's actually the castle bottle that was the one that his teammate had when the Hokuto trio was still around, and it was the castle one. So that was like the leader of the trio that he was the last one to be destroyed. And as far as things go, we end up seeing them back. We end up seeing that Sento pulls out his hazard trigger, looks at it, and then we end up seeing back at the base that basically Sento figures out what the hazard trigger was, other functionality is, because the bottle was purified. And the thing was that it was a lost bottle. And the thing is that the hazard trigger allows for lost bottles specifically, to be purified. So that was its second function. It was to purify lost bottles. And so what does end up happening is that he knows now that that was the positive function of it. It wasn't just for destruction, it was for purifying something that was meant to destroy, that was meant to lead to complete chaos and destruction through the warp hole. So that's kind of important. Clearly that will lead to other things that will be very, very beneficial. So what does end up happening from here is that we end up seeing another flashback of his father realizing, you've gotten taller, and also him like remembering that he made a promise to his father that he would protect the world from aliens that come to the Earth. That whole thing happens. Then we end up seeing in the preview clip that it looks like the 4 riders will finally be entering their true final battle with Evolto. It also looks like the Hokuto trio will somehow make a reappearance and may take on their original Smash forms. It's not clear as to whether or not they'll be fighting for good or for evil. Hopefully for the side of good. It looks cool to see them returning. I mean, it's nice to know that they are coming back. And I'm sure that they filmed this quite some time ago. I love the Hokuto trio. They were a cool group of characters. As far as things go, otherwise, it should just be interesting to see where things will go. There is a point as well where there's a lot of discussion having to do with government stuff, and also Utsumi is like stopped, like told to shut up by the by Evolto after talking back to him or whatever. And it's clear that like Utsumi is likely not going to last. Like he's just gonna eventually be destroyed by Evolto. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty much convinced that either he could be destroyed or something will happen that will lead to him switching sides. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly where Utsumi is going from here. He might be destroyed. I'm not sure. It's kind of a hard situation to really determine. As far as things go, though, that's about it. Should be interesting to see next episode. It does look like, I believe it's Kazumi that's going to get the Blizzard Knuckle. So Kazumi, Grease is going to get the Blizzard Knuckle, which will be interesting to see how that item will interact with Grease. But we'll have to wait and see. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to know your guys' opinions about this episode. I personally thought it was a really good episode, and hope to see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 71, and goodbye, guys.